British concert pianist Martin Roscoe has played with some of the world's greatest conductors and orchestras. He's artistic director of 2 music festivals and professor of piano here at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama in London. And I'm delighted that he's joining me for a classical conversation today. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you very much, Melanie. Nice to be here.
So I'm just going to dive in and I'm going to ask you all about your music education, how you got started, what age, and do you come from a musical family?
Amateur musicians. My parents were music lovers, and there was a piano in the house, but my dad played the violin and the saxophone as well.
Right.
I mean, they were more sort of dance band and jazz than classical, but they had lessons themselves. I started piano lessons when I was 6, the youngest of 3, and the teacher who taught all 3 of us pronounced first off that I was the least talented.
Oh really? How old was she?
Well, no, I understand, because I don't think I showed a lot of interest to start with, but one day the whole family went to London for a holiday, and this was in the summer of 1959. And the first night, having come down from Merseyside on the train, we went to a prom concert, and I was sort of so transfixed by this concert,
right.
the spectacle of it, the sound of the orchestra in particular. And there was a piano concerto on, but it was the Berlioz Symphonie Fantastique, which I remember being absolutely blown away with. So when we got back to Merseyside, I was sort of pitched in and was on the piano all the time, basically, just one book after another, because we did have a lot of music in the house.
Right.
Teaching myself to read and
Okay.
learning not just piano repertoire, but lots of the Star Folio books of overtures and symphonies and things.
Yeah.
I particularly liked those. I think William Tell Overture was an early favourite. So it was a sort of passion that took hold of me at the age. I was only just 7, and it's been with me ever since, I would say.
Yes. So who do you think then was your most influential teacher when you started to take formal lessons?
Well, the dear lady who taught me to start with was a bit more interested in me sort of progressing from grade 1 to 2 on Trinity than that. I wasn't totally interested in that. Not that I've got anything against Trinity exams, don't get me wrong, but I was keen to sort of just get to know Beethoven sonatas and Mozart sonatas and things. But my parents didn't really know what to do with me, I don't think. So I had about 6 years of these lessons without really learning a lot about how to play.
Right.
And then when I was 12, my father thought it might be nice to enter one of these competitive festivals. I went to the Alderley Edge Festival, and I tried to play the first movement of the Waldstein Sonata, never having had a lesson on it. And the adjudicator was certainly not damning or scathing or anything, but very highly critical. And I was well down the cohort in terms of the result. So my father thought it was time to actually explore having a different teacher. And I went to play to Gordon Green, who was the professor at the Manchester College and also at the Royal Academy. We're talking about 1965 now. And he pronounced, that I obviously had a lot of talent, but needed some bit more direction. He wasn't able to do it himself. So he recommended one of his colleagues at the Manchester College, Marjorie Clementi, distantly related to the composer. And Marjorie sorted me out, really. She sort of made me listen to what I was doing and made me realise it was actually quite important to decide which finger you were going to put on any given note.
Yes. Yeah.
So I had 4 years with Marjorie, and the last year was actually at the Royal Manchester College. So only just 16. I don't know whether you can do that anymore, but they allowed me to go in just 16 there as a full-time student.
Gosh.
And I had 1 year with Marjorie, and then I changed to Gordon. And they were both fabulous teachers, actually, in quite different ways.
Right.
Because Gordon taught a lot of the top British pianists of my generation and slightly older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And some slightly younger, because he taught Stephen Huff for a while too. but Christian Blackshaw, Martina Terimo, Philip Folk and so on. So he was a major influence, I'd say. After I left college, going up to 1974, I played to one or two other people around and about and had some masterclasses, including some with Alfred Brendel, which I found absolutely fascinating.
I bet. God. How did you develop your technique then, do you think? Did you furiously practice Czerny studies?
Not at all, no. I mean, Marjorie sort of got me onto Beringer exercises and one or two Chopin studies, after a certain amount of time. And then with Gordon, he was sort of, he didn't have a sort of technical regime as such.
Right.
But because I was so keen, he allowed me to learn the Liszt E-flat concerto when I was 17. And I learnt a lot, obviously, technically. It's a bit like, Daniel Barenboim in his book, or Richter on that film. They say, they never actually practice scales, except in the context of the pieces.
Yes.
And I think that's... I wouldn't say that as a teacher I never give technical work, that's not true, but I think one can learn so much about technique from the music.
Yes. So did you do any national and international competitions?
A couple, and I was never really a competition animal anyway. I mean, I did pretty well in the British Liszt, the one and only, I think, British Liszt piano competition,
right.
Which was won by Terence Judd. I was second, and Peter Tonner was third. That was the most successful one I did, I think. I won a prize at Sydney, but I think I didn't enjoy the competitive aspect of the business, and I only went to a handful, really. I mean, some young pianists now go from one with the same set of pieces.
Well, yes, that was my next question. Do you think they're valid anymore? Because there's so many competitions that, is it the way to... What do you tell your students? That how do they establish themselves, really, or can they establish themselves?
Well, it's perfectly possible to establish yourself without a competition success, and there's lots and lots of examples, especially most recently, especially amongst British pianists, and Benjamin Grosvenor. Well, because he did do young musician, but that was when he was only 12 or something.
Yes.
I think it's perfectly possible, but I think it can give you a sort of a backbone in a way to actually the stress of going out there in those competitive circumstances, and providing you have the right attitude towards, if you don't succeed, don't get hurt or depressed about it. Just move on from that and see what happens next. Take it as part of the learning process. But the most important thing here for a young pianist, I think, is to give yourself the time to learn your repertoire in your 20s.
Right. Yes,
and I was fortunate that I did go down that route, really.
And which composers then are you particularly drawn to? Now, has that changed over the years?
Oh, it has indeed, a lot. It's changed a lot. But I play a very broad repertoire. I don't play Bach in public. I absolutely love it, and I work at it, and so I teach it. But from there onwards, right up to contemporary music, I have a broad repertoire. The most recent times I've been concentrating very much on Beethoven, because I've been recording all the Beethoven piano sonatas. That's complete now. Only 3 discs yet released, but they're all in the can.
Wonderful.
And I'm moving on to Schubert now, which is another great love of mine. But I'm fortunate in that I love huge swathes of the repertoire in Liszt, Chopin, Schumann, Debussy, and some of the more neglected composers as well.
Yes, because you've made loads and loads of recordings, but I wanted to ask you about Dochnani and Szymanowski, because you've recorded all their piano music. What is it that draws you to their sound and their style?
Well, I always had an interest in Szymanowski, because I found him quite a fascinating composer, the sort of eclectic, drawing those influences from all those different people, and yet still having his own personality at the end of it. And when Naxos asked me if I was interested in doing it a long time ago now, 15 years ago, no, nearly 20 years ago, I jumped at the chance, really, doing that. It was a lot of music to learn, and a lot of music to keep in one's head. I mean, I don't play that much of it in concert.
Do you not? Right, no.
But I still think he's a very interesting composer. Dochnani, I've not finished recording that yet. I'm only halfway through that project, but I've always sort of been quite interested in him as a sort of staging post between Liszt and more 20th century Hungarian composers like Bartók.
Yes.
And I think his music is unjustly neglected, and perhaps even more so now than it was when I was young. And I think I just felt it was time to put that right, and I was very fortunate that Hyperion agreed with me. And so we're halfway through that at the moment.
Chamber music, you play a lot of chamber music. How do you think that influences your solo playing? Which one do you prefer, solo or chamber?
Well, I do get asked this question quite a lot, and I sort of have. I've got my answer ready now.
Sorry, it's not the original question.
Well, I look at it like this. I mean, the solo recital is the most challenging thing a pianist has to do, and the most satisfying.
Yes.
Because you have to, you have to have the audience's attention, possibly across a wide selection of different composers for the entire evening, and you've got to project that. But concertos are the most exciting.
Right, yes.
Because of the arena element of it, with the orchestra on the platform, like a big concert hall, Chamber music is the most purely enjoyable. It's not as stressful.
No.
And just the banter, and I use the word advisedly, with other musicians, both on and off the platform, is so enhancing, really, I would say, and I really do love that. But you do learn a huge amount about how to play solo piano music from working with chamber music.
Yes.
And working with top string players is absolutely fascinating to me, and the way they go about their business and the way they work towards colour in particular and the sound. And of course, I mean, playing chamber music also is very, very useful for concertos, because then you have to listen to the orchestra, you have to work with the conductor, and there are plenty of places in concertos where you are accompanying the orchestra, from Mozart onwards.
So which concert venues have you loved playing? What's been your favourite?
Well, in London, the smaller halls I like very much. Wigmore, of course, is wonderful, and I very much enjoy playing in King's Place, and I've been there quite a lot since it opened 4.5 years ago. For orchestral and big concert halls, I think the Bridgewater Hall in Manchester is very difficult to beat. I think it's a fabulous hall to play in and to listen. Symphony Hall, also very good, but some of the older halls are also fabulous. I mean, the Town Hall in Middlesbrough, you made up the...
I don't know that one, no.
That is a really fantastic venue. And Huddersfield Town Hall, Hull City Hall, King George's Hall, Blackburn, and the Victoria Hall, Hanley, those immediately spring to mind. Those are box-shaped Victorian halls.
Beautiful. So what's your favourite musical memory then? I asked this because of you. You just celebrated your 60th birthday and had a fabulous concert for that.
As a performer, you mean?
Yes, as a performer.
I think playing Rachmaninoff 2 at the Proms in 1989 was, it was a stressful build-up to it.
It must have been, yes.
And it was August bank holiday weekend, Saturday night, so a guaranteed sellout, especially with that in the programme and the Lavals.
Of course, yeah.
And just to walk out onto the stage at the Albert Hall and to see 6,000 people looking at you, and you have to sit at the piano and start the Rachmaninoff 2. And a dear friend of mine said, the two best things about concerts are when you get a telephone call offering you the date, and afterwards.
Afterwards, yes. I do agree, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that was an amazing experience. And one other, actually, same piece, and I'm not particularly either an expert at Rachmaninoff or anything, but Catherine Stott's festival in Manchester in the Bridgewater Hall in 2000, where she put on all 4 Rachmaninoff concertos in the same concert.
Wow.
Stephen Huff played number 1, I played number 2, Nelson Gerder played number 3, and Howard Shelley played number 4. Wow. And that was an amazing atmosphere, where you can imagine. It was just like the Proms, actually.
Yes.
Except that everyone was sitting down rather than the Proms.
You're artistic director of the Ribble Valley Piano Week and Beverley Chamber Music Festival. Quite different roles from your concert playing. So what assumed you to? Why did you decide to?
Well, it's quite different reasons actually. And the Ribble Valley Piano Week had been going for a couple of years, and I used to live in that area, so and I played in both their opening festivals, and they asked me if I would take on the role of directing it artistically, and I still do that with great enjoyment. I've got quite a strong local following in that area.
Yes.
The Beverley Festival was more of a sort of business venture to start with. Now, there are various sort of parts of the country where I seem to have a particular connection and relationship with the local musicians, and East Yorkshire is one of them. Beverley is fantastic a market town with two amazing churches, the Beverley Minster and where we hold our concerts is St Mary's Parish Church. And my agent, James Brown, who's from Beverley, and he said, you know, that'd be a great place to have a festival, let's set it up. And so that was, well, again, 20 years ago now.
Wow.
We've been going every year for 20 years.
God. So what exciting plans have you got coming up then for the rest of the year?
Well, of course, I had an amazing year last year with lots and lots of celebratory concerts for that. So it's not quite as busy, which is fine. That's fine. Having finished the Beethoven recordings, I'm looking forward very much to getting into the Schubert recordings, which will be starting at the end of the year. I've also got various chamber music projects on the go. I'm in this trio with my wonderful friends Peter Cropper and Murray Welsh, and we have great fun. We're doing quite a lot of concerts and hopefully some more recording later this year. I'm going back to Canada in the summer, having been last year to the Paris Sound Festival and the Ottawa Festival. Yeah, the diary's, oh yes, the diary's pretty good. Yeah.
So what does playing the piano mean to you?
Gosh, I sort of think of myself more as I hope it doesn't sound grand, but a musician who plays the piano rather than a pianist. I'm more interested in the music itself than the mechanics of it.
Yes.
I mean, most of my listening, away from just playing the piano, most of the listening I do is not piano music. It's more likely to be chamber music, string quartets, or symphonies, or opera. Certain parts of the operatic repertoire are great favourites. So, I don't know, I sort of see myself as a musical all-rounder in a way. It's just that the piano is the vehicle that I use to express myself. And, people often say to me, well, what do you play for pleasure?
That's such a popular question for non-musicians, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And the answer is, well, actually, I do other things for pleasure. Don't get me wrong, I get fantastic pleasure from playing the piano, but I don't sit there and think, right, I've done all my programme for the next recital, I've covered all that, or the next concerto or whatever. Now what am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to play some Debussy or something. I never do that.
Right.
But it's an inseparable part of my life, obviously, and I go to it most days. Although I do try to take some time off in the summer if I can. And last summer, in spite of my hectic schedule, I managed to get 4 complete weeks without touching the piano at all. Which, when I went back, I did feel very refreshed by that.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Martin.
My pleasure, Melanie. Thank you.